Well, the phone.
We'll let them run, listen to it with no sound.
Mine is just picking up.
We'll do a mime training.
With your phone on. Oh, but just to. You can, but the phone on you, if I do the phone on you, I do better. All right.
I think if Tom's any closer, he'd be alcoholic.
To enable audio control, please.
That's just to verify everybody's awake while watching this presentation.
There you go.
And turn the microphones off.
All that is microphone on. Okay, so we are all right? Yeah, picking us up.
All right, we'll do kind of this in two pieces. One, we'll do a little background through this PowerPoint. And then two, Paul will go in and work through the UI and show us a couple of different things on where devices are configured, where logs are located, and how to look at the queues, and a little bit of troubleshooting. So as we know, there's two, and we're just going to do the Ultra Gateway piece today, and we can get into Qfetch at the next meeting. So currently, we know there are two programs, Ultra Gateway and Ultra Archive Plus. The next release coming out within the next 3 months or so will be called Ultra Gateway High Volume, and that's specifically for us because the archive implies that they're storing data. All our sites at this point are actually using Ultra Archive Plus, but the functionality for Gateway is in the same program. The only difference as far as they're concerned for which one you get is your volume of studies that you're taking in. When you get in
Essentially archive, when you have gateway software there?
Yeah, it's one program and it's just based on the licensing that they provide you. Again, we currently use Ultra Archive Plus, which gives us capability of both applications, and again, it's going to Ultra Gateway High Volume for the future.
So when you're looking at, when you guys dial in and you're looking at the servers over there, is it labeled? Do you see that it says Ultra Plus?
It'll say Ultra Gateway on it, and where you go to look for log information is, and the application stored is under Ultra Gateway. But there's then some functionality within the UI that takes you to the Archive Plus side of it. So the two differences between the Gateway and the Archive Plus are, one, the toolkit. So Ultra Gateway uses the lead DICOM toolkit. It's old and not flexible at all. You can't really do anything to it.
It's like our Pegasus where they pay per license.
Okay, all right. And Ultra Archive Plus Gateway High Volume uses Office toolkit and allows them to make changes and additions on the fly.
That's UltraRAD. I don't want to say proprietary, but an UltraRAD toolkit. They designed it.
Oh, all right.
And then the second main difference between the two applications is the Ultra Gateway must receive the entire study first before doing anything. And the reason for that is because it allows you then to do coercion, QC routing before it gets sent. The Ultra Archive sends the data as soon as it's received. So it's just a matter of taking it in and then sending it to however many destinations we have configured to send it to. The picture piece there is the services that are installed for each of them. So the Gateway currently has Ultra Service and then Ultra Watch. So Ultra Watch just makes sure the service is running. The future will look more like the bottom. You'll have Ultra Archive Monitor and Ultra Archive Service. Again, the monitor is just watching the service. Oh, come on. Back one. All right, just some basic software requirements required for Windows 2008, 2012 server, Microsoft.NET 3.0, MSMQ. The database is SQL 2012 R2, and I recommend using Management Studio Express. They do have a kind of a built-in simplistic viewer that you can get to, kind of like our Run SQL, but actually it has a graphic involved with it. But if you really want to do anything,
we'll have to look at that and go. I forget exactly where it is, but it is kind of cool. If you have a simple SQL query you want to run, you know what table you want to run it against, you can actually run it from within the archive or gateway software.
So that is there, and again, it's quite easy and quick to access if you want to do anything more in depth. So obviously, Management Studio is nicer to use. The web UI requires IIS. It's not a typical piece, but Mayo does use that. And I don't know if they're going to push that to more people, but I know Mayo uses it.
The web UI isn't quite widely used in my customers for some reason, but it does give you an easier overview of what you're looking at. And so I may look at, of course, when I get some free time, I put it in like an Integris, because you can log in and it'll give you not real-time stats, but almost real-time, where it'll tell you the status of the outgoing queue, the incoming queue. I'm surprised they don't push that a little more than they do as a remote monitoring tool.
And then just some information on the license. It's based on the MAC address, the host name, and the serial number on the hard drive. So if you try to move to a new machine, just realize that you're not going to be able to use the license unless you can clone all that somehow. There's an update on there.
Not too far.
No. It's like Nick's screen's not updating. It's my cursor. What do you want me to do?
Oh, get to the next screen. There we go. All right. Just so it's known, the registry entries are under a local machine software WAL 6432 node, UltraRAD Core. There's a couple of different UltraRAD entries underneath the WAL node, but UltraRAD Core has all the configuration settings, and it's one place to go to look in case you're interested in whether the license is valid. The version of a couple of different applications is listed in there. The location of the logs, and you can see a couple of strings there for the SQL connection. It tells you how to get into this. Just kind of a point of reference. Next. Got it? All right. One of the questions I know Ron specifically had asked was in regards to upgrade. It's actually quite easy, and this is really the entire process. So we'll just go through it. The executables that are running the application are in UltraRAD Ultra Gateway bin directory. And there's 2 files in there. So a couple of things. One, just to check the version you're running, right-click the icon, go to Properties Details, and we can see listed here the file version 3.0.10.233. So very similar to how we do things, major minor patch listed there. They will notify us based on us sending in emails to their service. When those come out, I think we just need to verify with them, Bill, somebody that we're on that notification.
How are they're going to send an email to our group?
Well, supposedly it's based on anybody who sends in a service request. That email that you use for that is then entered into their system somehow or another, and then you're supposed to get notifications of that. I haven't seen it to this point, So
I would think, I'll talk to Bill Ginta about that, because I would think that whenever their group comes out with a software release, you ought to be able to shoot me a message.
Yeah.
To let you guys know.
He said they could put us on the distribution.
Yeah.
So what they don't notify though on is the build, and they can crank those out pretty quickly, and so those will get updated kind of as the guys there are troubleshooting. They'll throw on the latest build that they can and go from there.
How about to get a sense for, you kind of know the rhythm of how often we come out with stuff. How often does their software group come out with changes?
I don't know the major minor patch speed, but obviously this one's on 2.3.3. I think the builds come out quite
Pretty quickly, huh?
Any configuration or database changes, you know how when we do upgrades we have to run database scripts and make any of those changes manually. Those are done automatically when you start the application. So when you put in a new build, you start up the utility. It'll actually do any database upgrades for you as you do them.
Do you have to run the utility, or do you just start the service?
You have to run. I didn't put it on there. I think you have to run the utility.
I thought so, yeah.
A separate executable, but you have to run the utility first. It does that.
Like the archive service utility.
Right. And then likewise, if you put in a new build and want to step back, it undoes any of those changes.
Oh,
that you
nice.
made. And it does it again on
Nice.
this one. So you stop the service on the monitor. Those are the two pieces. You copy those two files, the UltraArchive utility and the UltraArchive service, to a folder.
Okay.
So create a folder 233, build 233, very similar to what we do, right? You have a new build, copy those two or move those two executables to your build 233 folder, copy in the new files, and you're set to go. That's how easy it is. Supposedly. Next. All right, there's a couple of different places to keep logs. For the gateway, it's an actual log file out on the server, gateway log. For UltraArchive Plus, you can find a couple of different logs through the menu options, and all can drill down to find those. But they are there: configuration, main settings, server history, and another one is server logs. There's a service and a TCPI, which shows all the connections, and we can look into those a little bit further. As far as the Ultra service log, 0, 1, 2, 3, just showing you some different levels, similar to what we have.
Those values are in parentheses in the log file, and I'll show you.
And then anytime you're sending or receiving data through the gateway, it started with the SCU and the entries. And then just information for where the incoming DICOM goes to. It's stored in a folder listed there. Same kind of idea that we have, date format underneath there. There's a bunch of weird type folders, but it's all there. Next.
The archive stores here in this path. The gateway stores under the store folder.
Was that the end? I don't know if that was the last screen or not.
Yeah, looks like it was.
Okay. Yeah, I figured it'd just be easier now. I mean, it's just kind of some of the basics. I'll go into the UI and do a little more visual. And
Who do I want to log into? I don't think so. One is, this is all of the routers at Integris. Each one of these has their own database. They used to run them on the local machine. Each of these local machines had their own SQL Server Express running their own database. We moved them all to the main database. The next iteration of that is Brian said that we can, if we wanted to, we could move all of these databases into one database. And I don't know if we want to do that or not. Gateway is not that important, I don't think, but there's not much downside to making it all one database. But as long as the database can handle the I/O.
So if you put one database, would each have their own table, in other words, kind of, or?
Or files on database, and a database server.
No, they have their own. They're all one database.
Really?
And they, I don't know. I think they alter the table names by the host name of the device. Like in Integris, when you log into the 731, which is their first server, I got a folder with all of the shortcuts to that. Number one thing is that there should only ever be one version instance of UltraArchive running at a time. More than one, and the system has trouble updating both instances. So I go and look here. It's the gateway utility, I think. Yeah, here it is, Ultra Gateway. So I'm the only one running it on this server, which is a good thing. This main screen here is what's coming in, or what's already in the gateway portion of the interface. They explained it a couple different times, and I got a little bit confused about it, but you can check services. In the menu, you can say view all, and it'll give you a shortcut of what services are running, what the status. You can stop, start, or start, reset. You can see the log associated with that. Okay, start over. But this is what's really happening in real time. The incoming status is the incoming gateway. Outgoing status is the outgoing gateway. Here it looks like there's been going for a while. Been going for a while.
Yeah, good 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes. Yeah. We got it all recorded.
What I'm going to start with though is the config. When you go to configuration, main settings, this is the gateway config. We're not using a dongle. Technically, we can uncheck that. We're using a license file. This is the license path. It's not that big a deal unless you get an error when you log in saying unable to find license file.
They often expire, we find. What's the process for that?
See this web request license file? Put in your name, customer, reason, say the license expired, your email address.
Like our email address?
Our email address. We can put in the so when we think we want it expired, but they're going to determine how long the contract's for. How long it's for. Now this hash code being blank is a problem. Tom and I didn't have this problem, but Brian did, or James did, where the hash code line was empty. There's another utility that I'll show you that generates a license request if this web request doesn't work. So anyway, like I just sent one in for United. I'm going to try to build get them to use it. We're going to test the gateway again with Amicus.
So you put your name, the customer name of your location.
Yeah.
reason it's expired.
If Bill Jinta gets this request, and I think, who's the other guy?
Yeah, somebody on service.
Not Brian, Roger.
Yes.
Roger gets the request.
And it'll come back in an email to you?
Well, what you can do is that they'll email you and say, here's your license string, and you can cut and paste that into a .license file. Or once they tell you that, see this download button, you'll click that and it'll actually go to their website and download your license file. But because there's no hash here, this wouldn't work. So that's basically what they told us. It's kind of a...
Sounds kind of convoluted.
Yeah, they license everything, so because they think their system is simple enough where it can be portable. You know what I'm saying? It's not like ours where you've got to build everything. This one you can do very minimal work and you can actually start routing. But you generate this hash code, like Tom said, it's based off the CPU,
MAC address,
and
serial number of the
first hard drive. And then you hit submit. They'll respond back like I'm waiting for an email and say, here's your license. Here it is. So Bill just said he'll generate in 30 days.
And they'll do this 24/7?
That I'm not sure. When I talk to somebody after hours, it's like us. It's usually somebody that's carrying a support line. One time I dealt with Vince after hours, another time I dealt with Gary. But I think it's basically Roger and Bill that generate these. So this is one way to do it, is right off of the gateway request. The second way they showed us was, and I don't know if they had this utility, but they gave us a utility. They gave us a license utility that's a little bit newer. And it is
There's license utility.
This is the utility. This will generally work all of the time. So you tell it, if you say global, you're going to get a license for the broker, prefetch, UltraArchive, UltraGateway. Now all of those can be licensed independently, which means that when you install the software, if you end up doing an install or whatever, somebody does an install, they're going to install all of the functionality that they offer. The prefetch, the gateway, the broker, all of that stuff, the QR agent. But in this case, we would just say UltraArchive and then gateway. And then this, again, it's not opening up that hash.
Go to the bottom and post them.
Oh, there it is. So here's the hash that they generate. Product type is UltraGateway. Expiration date, you know, whatever. They're going to put the expiration on it.
Did you go over the difference between a gateway and an archive or UltraArchive versus?
Yeah, I'll do it in the GUI. I'll do it here.
Good.
So anyway, licensing generally is something. If you start to get that, just call them and say, you guys got to deal with it. I don't particularly. I can do it, but I don't want to get it, you know, that deep into their licensing issues.
Good.
That's just my 2 cents.
I would agree.
I mean, you could even run a local license server or whatever, but that's you know, if you had a dongle, they said that disable the dongle if you're not using it. But again, I was saying that configuration main settings is the gateway config, not the archive config. So all of the status, everything's okay here. This is where you start to get into the config actually for the gateway. This is the AE title of the gateway, inbound and outbound. The DICOM port is your gateway port. So when somebody says we're sending to the gateway, and the gateway is, again, the gateway stores the whole study, basically waits a small time for a timeout and then processes the study, like Tom was saying. The archive gets one image in, puts one image out, one image in, one image out. It doesn't wait. As soon as that negotiation is over for that image, it's processed and going out the other end.
And when it stores the whole study in the gateway, it keeps it for a period of time?
Yeah, I'll show you where it keeps it.
Okay.
And you can specify how long you want to keep that gateway. So the archive port you see is grayed out. That's because it's configured in a different area. And I'll show you that next. STU and SCP timeout is a lot like our command timeouts. Total max in and total max out. On the gateway, that's a hard number. So say you had to set to 10 and somebody was saying, we can't get connected, we're just getting rejections. Chances are that there's so much volume on this gateway that there's more than 10 connections. So you should, they say
does it show you a log that succeeded, or?
Well, you'll basically start somebody will say that the connection retention of the STU are being rejected, and you'll see it in the log, I think, too.
What's the maximum value you can put in there?
Whatever the hardware will support, essentially. I don't think they put an upper number on it.
Why wouldn't you just max it out then all the time?
Well, I think when you do the install, the base config does 10. It's like a lot of our config options.
Don't they tune this when they do the install? So
somebody's got to do it after the fact, like we do. We've got to go and change the config. So the inbound is a limit, and I believe it's a limit for the gateway and the archive. The archive has no outbound limit, meaning it can send as many outbound as it can physically handle. The gateway has an out limit of 100. The maximum connections per client is exactly what it says. It's a lot like our DICOM device connection limits. How many times are we going to retry interval? Block size, 0 means we're going to basically negotiate 16, 384, whatever. SU lock retry, I'm not sure. This is a big thing. Incoming settings on the gateway, promiscuous mode. When you check that, you'll start to, the first time somebody connects a new device to the system, it'll actually enter that device in the device table. It'll give you the AE title, the IP address, the port. All that information would be available. And it's really nice because you don't have to build them all ahead of time. You can just check this. And then once everybody connects, then you can go through and make your routing rules or QC rules. Lock all incoming studies on a gateway. This is not checked because what happens is the lock is based on a storage commit. And if you don't have the storage commit, the gateway will never get rid of that file and it'll just stay on the drive and essentially just fill the drive eventually.
They use storage commit?
That you can.
But they don't normally, right?
No.
I would think not.
Check incoming QR permissions. I believe you can set permissions on what can query retrieve. Automatically add incoming info is in cooperation with promiscuous mode. And then, I'm not sure what that option is. For modify transfer syntaxes, you can change transfer syntax. You can do auto route,
But in theory, these should be all configured.
Right. I'm just showing you what the settings are that you can do, because these ones up here are the ones that typically are the ones that have to get tweaked.
Okay.
Yeah, here's the storage commit settings. Database. Everything's in clear text. So it is what it is. They're working on the new release that it won't be in clear text. What's interesting is this Sentinel path. You can take a DICOM file and drop it in this path, and the gateway will pick it up automatically and route it. So if you have a test object that you want to test, you can just drop it in this path, and it'll send it on its way.
Aren't the rules based on the device though? Yeah. Or a title or something.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure what the context of the Sentinel is. I'll have to ask them. That's a good question. Work path is what Tom was talking about.
Right, I wouldn't know what to do with it. Good point.
Tom was talking about the work path, the transactional place where the files are stored, either in the archive or the gateway. The viewer, you can actually, if somebody wanted to put a different viewer in, they could actually use something other than UltraView.
I'm sorry, what's the work path again?
That's where the transactional space for the DICOM objects are located.
So that's where they temporarily hold them?
Yep.
They have some sort of infrastructure you can go over? Or?
Yep. As soon as we get that's all that. Maintenance. Enable maintenance. This is often not checked. So when you enable this check, there's one other piece you got to do, right, Tom? Restart the service. Restart the gateway service. Basically what this does is there's some built-in checks for auto-delete the studies by files by age, delete by disk space. In this case, they're running everything on the C drive.
They still run into full directories and stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So do they not enable maintenance automatically on installs?
No, I had to do this all manually.
Why?
It's like our system, unless we tell development how to set the system up.
Well,
as a
but
default,
even
they
their
don't do it.
configuration people, the ones installing it, it should just be an SLP, right? I mean, it's needed, isn't it? And we've asked that like a year ago.
Well, I guess if it's our customer, we go check.
We should have them. We should probably make a little parking lot list of things that we'd like them to do, you know, standard like this. That's my thought.
We can.
Enable maintenance.
But
We already requested it, just didn't happen. Sounds like.
But until such time, would it be a good proactive thing to just check this setting on all the servers that we've got at our customer sites? Just make sure that they're all checked.
Encryption is DICOM encryption.
Or as you run into it.
You can enable DICOM point-to-point encryption if both ends are configured properly. Single media archive is
People use that?
People use ours?
yeah. No, I don't. I think they may have one site or two sites using it, but
Okay.
single media archive is CD burner, I believe.
They have a CD burning product.
Yeah. Logging is info warning normal. It's like our options. File logging.
Is this any reason you don't run it like we do at debug level, or is it crazy?
There is no debug. It's either info warning. When you want to get into TCP logging, we've got to do that in the GUI, and I'll show you where to do that. When you do that, it's like trace logging at the secret database level, which is
Crazy.
yeah. File size, number of days, normal stuff. You can view logs from here. You can open the directory from here.
So, question. So this is the area where if you're investigating something and you can't quite figure out what's going on, this is the part where they say, well, send us the logs, right? So how do you transfer these logs?
It's actually a part. They have an app that'll actually send the log files to them.
Okay.
It's pretty slick.
So you don't do it from here?
No, this is just to configure the logging.
But you can get to the logs from here?
Yeah, you just say open log directory.
Well, it says,
Yeah.
okay.
Or view. Does that work?
Well, you can view the watch service.
Did you go over what all the different logs are already?
No. See, here's an error 3 level, critical error.
And there's also that SCP that we mentioned a little bit earlier. So
DCM is a DICOM SCP. You also see an MSNQ, which is a messaging message. But we'll get into the log file in a bit.
So that little checkbox there that says log as common delimiter, that's not what's needed?
I would
Compress it.
unless you're going to throw it into Excel.
Right.
Okay.
Email. If you want to get notifications on errors, you can set this up, SMTP relay. This is not where you send the messages when there's an error. I have to forget what that is. QC thumbnails. Quality control, I think this is getting a little bit deeper, and we didn't really cover a lot of the creation of image thumbnails. They said to disable, make sure that that was blank in all of these lines. That's all I really want to say about that. It's just some of the settings that are important. So this is the gateway config.
Yeah, that says UltraRAD config at the top.
I'm telling you, it's the most confusing naming convention. Okay, so then main settings is the gateway. Archive settings are the actual archive setting. You'll see a different little GUI.
Just real quick, how did you get to the last one under configuration? Main, okay.
So the configuration gateway handles the gateway configuration, or main setting handles the gateway. Archive setting.
Gateway showing us data on the screen.
This is basically, yeah. But the confusing part is that it does show you some of the archives.
So it should archive and a gateway.
Yeah, sort of, yeah.
Okay.
But if you want to guarantee to see what's in the gateway, there, I'll show you where to do that. So the configuration here, the service name is UltraRAD is one of them, and it does not matter what the password is. You can put just gibberish in there. Secure. They said for the archive configuration that the UltraRAD quote user doesn't have the ability to do certain things in this screen, and to create an admin level user for yourself that will give you all the rights that you need. So you do that, you go configuration general. This is equivalent to the DICOM cooling time. They explained a lot of this. I forget what cooling time is. It should be always be set to never. Routing threads, query limits, maximum log size, temp directories.
Are there there's different services that run the gateway versus the archive, is that right?
Yeah. Tom had a PowerPoint with that on it.
Oh,
So
earlier?
There are right now, yes, but we will be going to, in the next couple of months,
It'll be like us. We'll have one service that you can't tell what's running.
instead of multiple separate ones, there'll be.
So we have all these legacy products we have to keep this going with, right?
There's two parts. There's only two areas of this interface right here that I find interesting. It's this here, this line right here. This is where you set your TCP logging. You can do TCP task. This will give you full-blown SQL error, SQL command error.
This is only if you're using archive.
This is for the archive part, yeah.
Okay. So now show me the gateway.
Keep unable to process is important to have checked, because if the gateway or the archive can't process something, it'll keep the file as opposed to just jettisoning it.
Oh, on the archive.
If it can receive the file but
gateway
it
will
can't
keep it
send it
anyway.
out, it'll at least keep the file like in a staging, like our staging location.
But you don't have to worry about this for gateway.
No.
Okay.
So Is that set by default?
I believe so.
Is this the area where you're going to like trace level? So this is not something you set and leave?
No, there's one more screen I'm trying to get to, and the screen just locked up on me. I get no, there we go. You go to configuration, network. So that line of settings in the prior screen will determine what gets logged when you turn on debug. This is where you actually turn on the debug. But first, here's the AE title of the archive port. You can have a different AE title. Here's the port. This port number was grayed out in the gateway. Remember? If there's a proxy port, you can use that. Promiscuous mode is checked. Timeout is 10 minutes.
Wait, why was it grayed out from the gateway?
Because you can't configure the
archive port of the gateway.
Even though it says
Yeah, come on, Chad.
Oh, so actually you're sending into the archive and gateway before? Before?
Depends on the port number.
You can't have both running at the same time?
Yeah, it's just going to run. But you're not going to send it all.
The decision about where the data is sent, it depends on what you want to do with the data. If you want to manipulate the data, if you want to tag coerce, you want to do QC, you send it through the gateway. If you want to just send the data in and get it out as fast as you can, you send it through the archive.
Okay.
The archive in that is like a router, really, right?
Yeah, essentially it's just, it says, all right, it's in here, it's out here, it's in here, it's out, that's all it's doing. The gateway says, all right, here's all the data, sets here,
But
it's off and process. And
But again, this should be part of the design and implementation. We shouldn't have to be changing this up, right?
sometimes it depends on the sending device. If the sending device doesn't do an association close cleanly, and it keeps association open forever like Amicus does, you can't use the gateway because the study will never close.
Right, but they should, when they implement the test, I hope, and here, it's working, hand off.
Yeah, but I'm talking more about new, they bring a new device in. They upgrade their CT scanner, they do, a new ultrasound device. Your debug is where you actually turn on debug. Even though this is checked and you hit OK, it's not going to start running debug until you restart the UltraArchive service. Once you do that, then you're doing full-blown debug. No delay is the Nagel stuff that's always checked. Data set, I forget, this has to do with QC, I think.
Yeah, I guess this kind of falls into their realm, I think. This is a little beyond.
Yeah, this is something they have to do with the QC, configuration. The association will tell you what transfer syntaxes are available. You can prioritize them, put them up and down order.
Do you mess with that?
I don't. This is another part. Say somebody says, I've got a new stop class. We need to add it to the router or to the gateway or the archive. You can only add a new stop class to the archive. There is no way right now to add a new stop class to the gateway without a new build.
Or maybe I need to switch to an archive from a gateway.
So at Jefferson, we had to go from the gateway to the archive because they were adding stop classes.
But you lose functionality.
Well, you lose.
Right.
Well, that gets into another gray area. That they told me that strictly, if they were pushed on it, they would say that the archive cannot do QC, cannot do tag morphing and all that. But a lot like our stuff, they can script around it.
Okay.
And so
What does that say about?
that's why the next release of the software is going to be basically, it's going to look like one. Because I kept going back, and a lot of our questions were, well,
Right.
can it do this or can it?
Right.
Type of thing.
Yeah, we got this other model over here.
Yeah.
So
bad with that.
if somebody says, all right, they call you and they say, I need to add a SOC class.
Oh, you need a VNA too.
But it's yellow.
Like here's a Memo Tomo I added a while ago. You give the UID, the type is class store, and the image is just an image. That's basically all you have to tell it. It's class UID, description, and then type is class store. You want to store it.
So once we have one of these up and running, are we to help customers evolve it to add other devices and all that, or does that go back to them?
I support.
I would. So,
Well,
UltraRAD?
it depends. Now, if you want to just add a device and you have promiscuous mode set up, it'll add the device the first time it connects. You don't have to do anything.
They just tell it what to do.
Right. But if you have routing rules and other functions based on certain functionality that you need done, then you have to add that device to that rule set.
Does that fall under our wings or fuzzy?
Yeah, I mean, typically, I'm getting into a lot of stuff that I would check, but
Yeah, you're beyond level 1.
you don't have to. The other part that's interesting is it's not intuitive, but if you want to see what's coming through the archive side, you go to Administration Archive, and you filter by date.
You got there through.
Administration Archive. It makes sense, right?
Yeah, sure. Yep.
So this is the name of the device, patient ID, patient name, patient ID, session number, date, time.
This is to see what it's processed.
Right. And then if you click on any one of these, you'll see like this was one SR, this was one OT series, but it had two, an image, a secondary capture, and an X-ray angio. Here you've got a report from Mammo, computer-aided. Here's an ultrasound with two series, but all of these images. And what's interesting is you right-click on these, you click Open Path, it takes you right to the image.
That's nice.
You know how much time I waste looking for images in our system on storage? You have to click through, click through, click through, click through, and then boom, it's there. Especially in the new UI.
No, it's actually
it's easier.
Yeah. Well, if it would be nice if we could just click it and it would open.
This you go right click, Open Path. There's the image.
Yeah, that would be nice if we had that. That's one less.
So a use case, let me just make sure I got this. So customer calls up, Mike Quinn calls up and says, at Jefferson, we're not getting images through whatever it is.
Most of the time they need to tell us, are you sending to the gateway or are you sending to the archive?
And they don't. But,
And if they say we don't know,
yeah.
then you say, well, you really need to know because there's two different areas we're going to check. One is the gateway service and one is the archive service. Because the archive service can be down for whatever reason.
Well, yeah. I found that you need to add gateway, archive, and then I'm like, I don't know the difference.
Right.
Now I'm a little clear, but and then it's like what router Hegris is calling. It's like it's called.
Well, that's the other thing. I can't get this study through the system.
Yeah. Right.
What? Yeah. Where's it coming from? Where's it going?
Routers.
Right. Exactly.
What site is it? Well, it's Baptist. Baptist has 4 routers.
Yeah. You're getting
Which
closer.
router is it? Is it the load balance routers or is it the standalone router?
Yeah. There's all that
But you
discussion.
got to be kidding me.
They have clusters too.
Now, when they say router, that's just a garden variety router. That's not an
No,
ultra.
they're
call these routers.
Yeah,
The router refers to either gateway or archive.
Right.
but it's a generic name for, it's like saying VNA for us. It's,
All right, that's their generic term for it. All right, I got it. So what you had up on the screen here a moment ago, though, is that you can actually see them like, oh, well, you can't find Tommy Davis. Well, I can tell you, it's been through the system.
well, that's the thing. I've done this before where they said, well,
Yeah.
the study that was done at 11:12 a.m. with
Yeah.
the succession number,
Yeah,
we're not seeing it in the PAC system.
right.
How do we know we sent that?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. How do you know what? Is that the study date and time that's showing there? Like perform date and
The
time?
perform time.
Like, what tells you that that's sent successfully?
The fact that it says it doesn't say scheduled?
Yeah, the scheduled ones are the ones that are
In a
that
queue?
have issues.
Are to be done.
Status, yeah. See, here's started. So some of these need to be cleaned up. It doesn't look like anybody's been monitoring.
So started means it's active?
Means it's receiving. Scheduled means it's ready to go, and then
What does blank mean?
just means that it's completed.
Is there a list for these stati?
I think it's in their documentation. But the interesting thing is that I can click on this user here, and I can say export, and I can export the whole study to a file. So say the receiving system won't accept the date icon because it's quote corrupted. I can export the study to a file location.
Can't you just go click on it where you were before and
Yeah.
grab it too?
But it's kind of neat where you can just export the whole thing out of here.
Yeah.
And you can also, you can route it, right click on it and say routing, I want it to go the impact 6.5 system.
Oh, you can change where it's gonna go?
Yep.
Will that affect where it's currently supposed to go?
No, so say I created an Evercore device. They're not routing to us, they're routing to PACS and then to us. So say I want to skip PACS and I just want to send it to Evercore from the router. I can set up Evercore as a device.
Yeah.
I can right click on this, say routing. I'll pick Evercore from this drop down list, hit OK, and boom, it's gone.
How do you get? Does this show errors?
That's where it gets kind of hinky when you're in the UI interface. So let's just pick a person. So this Emma L. Smith went through the archive. I'm going to regret not writing down this.
I'm going to hop on my call, but I kind of want to see that too.
So okay, so now here's the quote gateway interface, right? They said. So now I'm going to run it. I'm going to do Smith. Emma. Well, she went through the gateway, right? No.
What?
She went through the archive, but the patient shows up in the gateway search.
I don't know how you got there.
This is just the main gateway screen.
And
if I want to see what happened, I hit show archive activity. It was received in here, and then it was sent out to these two locations.
Well, that's good to know.
Yes. And it tells you what time it was sent, because more often than not, you're going to get a call saying this is in the PACS, and you're going to go, we sent it to your PACS at 9:30.
This is the default screen.
Yeah.
You come into the UltraRAD app.
So then it says we successfully sent this study to the archive at 9:30. It's not our problem.
Thanks, Jed.
Go figure out why it's not in your PACS system.
We'll call a timeout here. This is really great. I'll get another session going. Let me stop the recording here so they're not hearing me.
You got to get into walk file.